Let me take you back to the spring of 2017. That was D-Day for me. My wife and I were both around 30, had been together since our college days, and we had a kid in elementary school. Life seemed steady on the outside. At first, I had this nagging suspicion that something wasn't right. I started to wonder if my wife might be seeing someone else. When I brought it up, she denied it flat out. But as time went on, the signs piled up, and eventually I found proof. I confronted her with it. She stuck to her story at first, but after some pushing, she broke down in tears, confessed, and begged me to forgive her. In that moment, all I wanted was for her to pack up and leave, to kick off the divorce right then and there. But before I get to that, I think it's important to explain how things led up to her confession. Even though there hadn't been any physical cheating yet, it was clear that something was brewing. She already had plans in motion to meet someone. A few months before that day, I noticed her acting weird with her phone. She started turning away when using it, and she'd shut it down fast whenever I walked into the room. She even took it into the bathroom or the shower, which struck me as odd, but I brushed it off at the time. Then came the moment that really raised a red flag. We always shared our phones without thinking about it. But one night, I wanted to look up a new place to eat, and my phone was charging, so I asked for hers. She hesitated and just showed me the menu while still clutching the phone. It felt off. That, along with other little things, started to build up in my head. After days of overthinking, I finally asked her straight up if there was someone else. She reassured me it was nothing, said she was helping a friend through a personal crisis and needed to keep some things private. I wanted to believe her. But the uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. It seemed like her sketchy behavior stopped for a while, or maybe I just convinced myself it had. Then something big happened that made everything click. One afternoon, in a moment of intimacy, she reached for her phone and said she wanted to record us. That was completely out of character. She usually hated being on camera, said she was too self-conscious. Naturally, I was curious and asked her why. She looked a little embarrassed, and said she wanted to see herself from the outside. Honestly, I was kind of intrigued by this new side of her. So I agreed. She set the phone up to record, just her, and filmed every bit of it. She really got into it too. Usually, she only went along with this kind of thing when I brought it up. But this time, she dove in, eyes locked on the camera, radiating confidence, and honestly, she was electric. The sounds, the energy, it all took me by surprise. When it peaked, she put on this show for the camera like she was trying to impress someone. I didn't realize it then, but that video would turn out to be a huge piece of the puzzle later on. Still, I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I didn't want her to feel ashamed or discouraged about being more adventurous. So I tried to play it cool, thinking maybe this was something we could explore together. We'd been together since we were 20, so this sudden change in her personality triggered a gut feeling in me, something I'd learned to trust. A few weeks later, I gave in and checked her phone. I looked for suspicious texts or photos, but there was nothing obvious. Then I remembered, we used to back up our photos automatically to Google Photos. So I logged into my laptop using her account and took a deeper dive. Her inbox looked normal at first. But then I found a big folder of pictures and videos, all taken by her, all from about 4 months earlier. And none of them were meant for me. She had deleted them from her phone, but forgot they were saved to the cloud. Curiosity pushed me further. I opened the camera app on her phone and started scrolling through her recordings. Before confronting her, I made copies, just in case she caught on, and tried to erase them. I sat on that information for a few days, trying to wrap my head around what it all meant. Back then, OnlyFans wasn't really a thing, so that didn't even cross my mind. I started wondering if she was posting this stuff online somewhere, but honestly, that wasn't like her. She'd always been private, almost shy. The only explanation that made sense was that there was another guy. I confronted her again, told her something still felt off. But I didn't say what I'd found. I hoped she'd open up on her own. Instead, she got a little defensive, said we'd already talked about this, and denied again that there was anyone else. No admission. No clarity. Just more doubt. I asked her again if there was something she needed to tell me, anything she wanted to get off her chest. Once again she said no. But by then, I had already gotten into her Google account. So I laid everything out, all the evidence I had gathered, and demanded she explain what I found. At first, she looked shocked. But she quickly collected herself and turned it around, saying I had just ruined a surprise anniversary gift she'd been planning for me. Since we both traveled a lot, she claimed she wanted to give me something special to enjoy while we were apart. I wasn't buying it. So I decided to push a little further. I bluffed and told her I had access to more than just her Google account. I was hoping that would push her to finally tell the truth. I gave her an ultimatum: come clean, or I'd leave. That cracked her. She started crying and begged for forgiveness, insisting things weren't what they looked like. She swore she hadn't done anything, technically, wrong, just made a series of dumb choices. I asked her about the guy she'd been talking to. She said he was a colleague, someone she met at a work event at the end of 2016, about 7 months before all this blew up. Apparently, he worked in the same company, just at a different branch about 200 miles away. At first, they only emailed each other about work. Then they swapped numbers. She told me that because he'd been in his role for so long, she reached out for advice when she got promoted. That's how it started. Eventually, the conversations drifted into personal territory. He started flirting, and she flirted back. When things got a little too revealing, he suggested they move the chat to an encrypted messaging app, to keep it private. From where I stood, it seemed like this guy had a habit of chasing married women, and that really didn't sit well with me. She had deleted their early conversations, so I never saw the beginning. But everything after that was still in the app. When I told her I wanted to read it, she resisted. Tried to talk me out of it. Got all emotional. But I reminded her, if she wasn't completely honest with me, I was gone. Eventually, she caved. Curled up on the couch with her head in her lap and handed me the phone. What I found shook me. The messages were full of explicit content, steamy photos, dirty videos, and a ton of back and forth about an upcoming summer work event. They had made plans to spend 2 nights together at a hotel, and the details they exchanged were shockingly graphic. As I kept reading, my mind snapped back to that video she made a few weeks earlier. I asked her straight up, "Did you send him the video?" She burst into tears. I scrolled through more messages, and there it was. They had been talking about that exact video. He told her how much he enjoyed pleasuring himself while watching it. And she responded by saying that knowing he was watching it turned her on. That crushed me. This wasn't just about a sexy video. It was a full-blown emotional betrayal. And the worst part? She had dragged me into it. I've never been the kind of guy to send explicit photos or videos, not even to her. The idea of her sharing something that intimate, something that featured both of us, with another man, it terrified me. Whether she meant to or not, she had made me a participant in something that wasn't meant for me. That video, I realized, wasn't for us. It was for him. That hit me hard. I felt like I was just a prop, an extra in a show that was really for someone else. That's when I made the decision to leave. I told her I wanted a divorce. She moved out eventually, but even then, she kept pushing for reconciliation. To get my head straight, I talked to a few divorce lawyers. They all said the same thing: divorce would mean a major financial hit, and I'd likely end up with joint custody of our daughter. So I sat down and did the math. I had long talks with my parents, looked at my finances from every angle, and talked to friends and a coworker I really trust. After weighing everything, I came to the conclusion that divorce was still the right choice. Yeah, money would be tight for a while, but I could get through it. And I honestly believed our daughter would be better off with 2 happy, separated parents than stuck in a miserable marriage. But just when I was ready to file, my wife surprised me. She proposed a 1-year trial separation, time for both of us to cool down and maybe rebuild what we had. I talked it over with a marriage counselor. They told me that if I decided to move forward with the divorce after that year, They could help make sure the custody and property split were fair. After a lot of thinking, I agreed to the separation. I told my wife straight up that I was going to treat our separation as if I were single. We'd been together so long, since college, and honestly, I didn't have much real-life experience before we got together. I felt like I needed to explore the world a bit and figure out who I was before I could make any final decision about our future. I also made it clear that I wasn't okay with the way she'd handled things. And if she thought this arrangement was unfair or made her uncomfortable being in what felt like an unequal position, then we could go ahead and talk about divorce. It was tough for her to hear, no doubt, but she eventually understood where I was coming from and agreed. Not long after that, I started dating again. One of those relationships was with a woman I met at the gym. That one lasted a few months. I think my wife doubted whether I was serious about any of it, or maybe even about the separation itself. She definitely didn't handle it well when we went to our first marriage counseling session. We introduced ourselves, shared our story, and the counselor asked if I was dating anyone. I said yes. Right away, my wife snapped. "I don't see the point of this if you're out there dating other women." After the session, I told her I actually agreed. Counseling didn't seem like the right move under the circumstances. Later, she apologized and said she didn't mean it. I told her we could revisit the idea down the line. Over the next few months, she'd text me now and then, usually late at night, asking why I had treated her the way I did. She also asked if maybe I hadn't punished her enough for what happened. About a year and a half later, I started thinking more seriously about giving things another shot. We were doing a solid job co-parenting, and we spent time together as a family with our daughter. On top of that, dating had gotten really disappointing. It might have been too soon, or maybe I just wasn't ready, but most of the women I met didn't leave a lasting impression. Even after second or third dates, I couldn't picture anything more than a casual fling. So, more than a year into being legally divorced, I decided to stop dating altogether. That choice opened the door for me to reconnect with my wife. In early 2019, I asked her to move back and so we could try to rebuild our family. Our daughter was over the moon, she was so happy. We focused on co-parenting, and I'll give her this, as a mom, I trust her completely. She's amazing. I know she'll always make the right call when it comes to our daughter's health, education, or anything financial. But as for the romance, that spark never really came back. And the hard truth is, I don't feel that same deep appreciation for having her in my life anymore. Some parts of our relationship are far from perfect, but they don't outweigh the overall balance. I've made peace with things. For a while, I was okay just being a responsible partner and a devoted dad. That role suited me fine. But lately, things have shifted. Some recent events stirred up old pain, and it's left me feeling lost and depressed again. After the betrayal, I really leaned on the people around me, especially my best friend. We'd been tight since we were teenagers, always there for each other. Proms, weddings, the birth of our kids, we were side by side through all of it. Even with busy lives, we still made time to hit the gym together several times a week. When I was separated from my wife, he stepped up big time, checked in with me every day, made sure I was eating and staying sane. He even kept an eye on how much I was drinking, making sure I didn't spiral. I did my best to keep it together until I could find my footing again. But things started to shift after I took over hosting Thanksgiving last year. He began pulling away. Canceling our gym sessions, avoiding texts and calls. At first, I figured it was just the holiday crunch, family obligations, work, all that. I'd still text him now and then, just to check in, but his replies were always short, sometimes just a thumbs-up emoji. I didn't think too much of it. I figured maybe he just needed some space. I tried reaching out, reassuring him that I cared and that I was still there for him. But then, in January, my wife dropped a bomb on me. She confronted me, angry, saying I had never told her that my best friend and his wife had gotten divorced. I had no idea what my wife was talking about at first. Apparently, my best friend's wife had reached out to her, asking for help to work through their issues, especially around infidelity. She wanted my wife to encourage them to fix their marriage. My wife responded with her usual advice, the same kind of stuff she always says. Relationships need transparency, patience, and mutual respect. She even suggested a book to read. I couldn't help but notice the irony, but I bit my tongue. Still, watching the pain my friend was going through hit me hard. Like everyone else in our circle, I'd heard bits and pieces about their struggles, but I had no idea it had gotten this serious. And honestly, I didn't understand why neither of them had come to me for support. This guy had been there for me through the worst, through my wife's betrayal, without judgment. I thought he knew I'd do the same for him. Feeling anxious and wanting to reconnect, I started reaching out. I invited him to hang out, maybe hit the gym or grab a drink. I even convinced him to meet up for a game of disc golf, though it took some persistence. When we finally saw each other, he was cold. Standoffish. It wasn't like him. But after a while, he started to open up. He told me that one day, his wife had told him they should live separately, like I had with mine. She even said extramarital affairs were common in long-term marriages. It shook him. She didn't believe he'd been faithful, and that lack of trust made him start thinking seriously about divorce. It became clear he partly blamed me for what had happened to him. That realization cut deep. It was like being stabbed with a blade, the idea that I might have played even a small role in my friend's pain. It almost hurt as much as when I discovered my own wife's betrayal. I started asking myself the hard questions. Did my decision to stay with my wife somehow make what she did seem more forgivable to others? Did I unintentionally normalize infidelity? I tried to explain my choice to him, that our marriage had become more about practicality than love. That it didn't even resemble what it used to be. But his coldness didn't throw me off. I knew he had every right to be upset. I still care about him and sympathize deeply with what he's going through. The whole experience reopened wounds I thought had healed. It made things even worse between my wife and me. It's been 2 months since we last had any real intimacy. Even making eye contact or simple touch feels strained now. Lately, I've started thinking about divorce again. The only comfort is knowing my daughter is older now. She's mature enough to understand, and she can voice her thoughts and feelings about our family situation. No matter what happens, I fully trust my wife to be a great co-parent. That hasn't changed. But I carry a heavy guilt, this sense that I've let things slide too far, that I've become someone I don't recognize. Have any of you ever felt that crushing guilt this late in the game? How do you move past it? Logically, I know I'm not responsible for someone else's marriage falling apart. But the judgment from someone I love and respect weighs heavily. I feel like I've failed him. I can't support him the way he supported me. And I honestly don't know what to do with that. Sometimes I wonder if the cheating broke something in me, something I can't fix. The part of me that used to crave connection and emotional closeness feels gone. I remember lying in bed one weekend next to a truly amazing woman, in the middle of a sweet, tender moment, and feeling absolutely nothing. Just emptiness. I wanted that deep connection I used to have with my wife, but it never came. That emptiness filled me with guilt. And with it came a painful kind of self-doubt. When we reconciled, I hoped we'd find our way back to that deep emotional intimacy. And while the physical side of our relationship has its moments, it feels like I'm just going through the motions. There's no real satisfaction in it, not the kind that comes from a true bond. Since I last brought all this up, there's been a little progress. We've had a few good conversations. I'll give her credit, she's smart, and she really tried to understand what's been weighing on me. I asked her, "How can you judge Mike's wife for cheating when you basically did the same thing?" She shot back, saying it wasn't the same. That Mike's wife had cheated multiple times, and she had never actually gone through with it. She seemed convinced that as long as she didn't physically cross the line, it wasn't the same. I reminded her of our past conversations, the video, the texts, the emotional attachment. Her response? Something like, "I made a big mistake. I let myself get swept up in the moment. But I never meant for it to go that far." But honestly, She just doesn't get it. Or maybe she doesn't want to. I still don't fully understand it. On one hand, I know things between us could have turned out way worse. But on the other, the guilt still hangs heavy on me. At least now we're talking. That's something. Some people have recommended psychotherapy, and I get why. But aside from that one marriage counseling session we went to early on, we never followed through. My wife did see a therapist on her own during our separation, though. As for me, it's complicated. My family has a rough history with mental health treatment. My grandmother was horribly mistreated by professionals back in a time when mental illness was barely understood, let alone handled with care. That left a mark on all of us, and it's become a mental block I haven't been able to break through. I want help. I just don't know how to trust that process. Regarding Mike, I decided to take the advice I've been given and give him space. I sent him a message, something simple, letting him know I was thinking of him, that I was sorry he was going through all this, and that I'd be here for him if he needed anything. He responded with a thumbs up. Not much, but it was something. I still feel for him, deeply. I want to be there for him. And I want to thank you, whoever's listening or reading this. You've become my outlet. I can't talk to anyone else in my life about this stuff. They either bash me or bash my wife, and neither of those things helps. So if you've got any words of advice, or even just encouragement, I'd be grateful. Tonight took an unexpected turn. For the first time since New Year's, and everything that went down with Mike and his wife, my wife had a few glasses of wine after work. And she looked stunning. She always has this natural beauty that's drawn me in, but tonight, it hit me hard. Lately, my physical urges have been building up, probably from all the emotional mess piling on. But her betrayal changed how I see myself in her life. It made me question if I was ever really essential to her, or just convenient. Like if I didn't give her what she wanted, someone else would just step in. There was no tenderness in what happened between us tonight. No warmth. Just something raw, desperate, almost primal. As soon as it was over, my first instinct was to jump in the shower. And that's what I did. It hurt her, she didn't say it, but I could feel it. If I turned her down completely, it probably would have hurt even more. But I'm not sure what happened tonight can be called a win for anyone. I hate to bring down the mood, but I'm deeply disappointed in myself, and in the way things are now. Talking about it here helps. It brings me a kind of peace I can't seem to find anywhere else. Growing up, my dad taught me that a man should carry his burden silently. Do the job. Push through. Nobody cares about how you feel, they only care if you're useful. It's probably no surprise he passed away young. After what happened tonight, there's been this weird tension between us at home. I've been keeping a low profile, letting my usual routine, work, the gym, carry me through the days. One bright spot? My daughter and I have gotten close through our shared love of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We spend hours at the gym together, weekday evenings, Sunday afternoons, it's become our thing. In early February, we got word that my mom's sister had passed away. She lived in a neighboring state and left behind some important personal items, family photos, old heirlooms, things that really mattered to my mom. Without hesitation, I offered to make the trip and pick them up. We'd agreed on the plan a few weeks ago, and oddly enough, my wife and I decided to go together. That Friday morning, as we were getting ready for work, I reminded her about the trip. I offered to go solo. It was over 4 hours each way, and I figured I could handle it. I even brought up a similar trip I'd done before. She said she wanted to come. I told her it was fine either way, and she probably had better ways to spend her Sunday. But she insisted she didn't mind and wanted to ride along. I told her I wanted her there. I really did, but only if she was sure about it. I knew it wouldn't be a fun trip, and I didn't want her to come out of obligation. Sunday morning came. I got up early and made sure my mom could watch our daughter for the day. Once that was set, I went back home and got ready to hit the road with my wife. The first hour was quiet. She had just woken up and isn't a morning talker. Eventually, we stopped for breakfast, had some coffee, and finally started chatting. The conversation was casual, mostly about our daughter, some work stuff. Nothing deep. Then out of nowhere she asked, "So, how's Mike doing?" She had no idea what had happened. I admitted I didn't know what was going on with Mike, which clearly surprised her, considering how close he and I had always been. I told her the truth. I hadn't seen him since we grabbed drinks a few months back. She seemed confused by that, and asked if something specific had caused the distance between us. I explained that it wasn't anything dramatic, just life. We'd both gotten busy, and communication had fallen off. I tried to steer the conversation in a different direction, but she wouldn't let it go. She started in on me, saying I hadn't been there for a friend in need and that she was disappointed I hadn't supported him through a tough time. She told me that Mike's wife had cheated and that they were headed for divorce, like it was some kind of bombshell I'd missed. I could feel the tension rising, but I kept it in check. Calmly, I told her I didn't want to keep talking about it, then turned up my podcast to drown it out. Still, deep down, I knew this conversation was inevitable. I've always been better at expressing my thoughts in writing than in the moment. That's why I'd been active in some online forums and discussions, trying to sort out my emotions. Writing helps. I even keep a journal where I put down my questions, my thoughts, things I'd want to say out loud but usually can't. And honestly, the advice and feedback I've gotten from people online has really helped shape how I see all of this, even when I didn't want to hear it. So I lowered the volume on the stereo and told her the truth. I explained that I had seen Mike. That his wife, just like mine once did, had encouraged him to take time apart. That she'd even said extramarital affairs were normal in marriage. And yeah, Mike was hurt. But he also started to wonder if maybe he was overreacting. I told her that, unfortunately, there's some truth to that perspective, that when someone stays with a partner who's cheated, it can make infidelity seem less serious, more forgivable. I also said that maybe, just maybe, if Mike's wife had seen the pain and consequences my wife went through after losing her marriage, she might have thought twice. I admitted that talking to Mike brought all my own pain rushing back, the betrayal, the doubts, everything. That's when my wife got angry and defensive. She lashed out at Mike and at me for calling her situation with her coworker betrayal. Trying to avoid another fight, I told her to just forget it. I said I regretted bringing it up and suggested we focus on the scenery outside, the trees, the flowers. Something peaceful. Then I turned the radio back on. We sat in awkward silence for about half an hour. Eventually, she calmed down. She apologized and said she wanted to keep talking. I said okay. Her first question: "Do you still love me?" And I answered honestly, "I don't know." She said she could tell how I felt. That she knew I still loved her. Curious, I asked, "How can you be so sure, when I'm not even sure myself?" She told me that love isn't just a feeling, it's shown through actions. She said she could feel my love through the way I take care of our family, through my consistency, my presence. Even when we were separated, she said I still welcomed her when she needed help. Even during the hardest moments, she trusted me. She believed in me, for herself and for our daughter. She said my devotion to both of them came from a place of love. And that if she felt that love, then to her, it was real. Then she asked, "Do you think I love you?" I paused and said, "I know what you love." I told her I believed her life would probably be easier if she left, and that if she stayed, love must be the only reason. But I still couldn't understand how she could say she loved me and yet do what she did, risk our entire family like that. I told her that, deep down, I wondered if something was missing in me, something that made her seek connection elsewhere. I asked why she never came to me with her doubts. Why didn't she just leave instead of betraying me? That hurt her. She got upset and told me that leaving was never even on the table. She insisted that she loved me deeply, that she always had. But I just couldn't make sense of it. Her words didn't line up in my head. They didn't feel consistent. Or real. I couldn't help but ask her, if she wasn't unhappy, why would she even start something with another man? I began to wonder if maybe I hadn't shown her enough love or attention. Had I somehow made her feel unwanted? Unloved? She reassured me that I hadn't done anything wrong. But she admitted that after so many years together, she started taking some of those loving gestures for granted. Things I did for her, things that came from a place of love, might have just felt like routine to her. She also opened up about her own doubts. She said that over time, she noticed how other women would sometimes show interest in me. It made her feel replaceable, like she didn't hold a unique place in my life. She believed that if she ever left, I'd have no trouble finding someone else. That insecurity pulled her towards someone completely different, a man much older than us, short, bald, with a big belly. He looked nothing like me. She even saw pictures of his wife, a plain, average-looking woman, nothing remarkable. My wife, being younger and conventionally more attractive, felt like she had a special place in his world. He gave her all his attention, undivided, intense, and that made her feel incredibly confident and valued. She described the experience like being high, intoxicating, even addictive. She loved the feeling that she alone could stir up such powerful emotions in someone. Of course, my curiosity got the better of me. I asked if she had ever doubted my loyalty during all this. To my surprise, she said no, not once. She told me she always trusted my devotion and believed I'd never betray her. But the moment I started dating other women during our separation, everything changed. She had a strong, almost violent, emotional reaction to it. I asked her how that made sense. Why wasn't I entitled to the same kind of loyalty and protection? She insisted she had been loyal, that she was devoted and would never stray. So I reminded her of the messages I'd found, the ones where she made plans to meet up with that guy during a company event. She brushed it off. Said it was just to make him feel better about himself. That she knew the company wouldn't send her that year anyway. It was about boosting his confidence, keeping his attention focused on her. I asked her if she was even attracted to him. She just grinned and said no. I didn't get it. I told her that sounded completely contradictory. She responded with this strange comparison, said that their text-based relationship was like how some men use explicit content for energy or stimulation. It's not about love, she said, just about feeling wanted. According to her, his attention, and even the attention from his wife, created a kind of excitement and anticipation. But that didn't mean there wasn't love between her and me. In fact, she claimed that because of all that, her connection with me actually felt stronger. She said our relationship had become more enjoyable in the moments we were close. Hearing her talk, it struck me how intensely she described all this, like it was something that truly lifted her self-esteem. She made it very clear, whatever she had with that man wasn't about love. As I listened, I started to realize she'd spent a lot of time working through all of this in therapy. But me? I've never gone to therapy. That's always been a tough subject for me. See, mental health issues run deep in my dad's side of the family. Serious ones. My dad actually managed pretty well most of the time, though he had the occasional episode, sometimes slipping into delirium. But his mom, my grandmother, her condition was worse. She was sent to psychiatric institutions over and over again. And the way she was treated there? It was awful. Inhumane. My dad saw it all firsthand. It gave him a deep distrust of mental health professionals. And I grew up in the shadow of that fear, always worried my dad might get taken away too, that he'd disappear during one of his episodes. Because of all that, I developed my own fear. A fear of therapy. Of doctors. Of being seen as broken. Thankfully, I never developed the same conditions they had. I passed the age when symptoms usually appear, and I've been mostly fine. But if anything ever does come up, I tend to ignore it. I downplay it. After that first marriage counseling session, when we sat with not one but two therapists, I was so uncomfortable that I just gave up on the whole idea. Now I'm sitting here, still carrying all this emotional weight, and I honestly don't know how to deal with it. I still carry this heavy uncertainty. Maybe therapy could help. I don't deny it. But part of me fears that if we go, my wife will only talk about the things that benefit her. That's the dilemma. How do you trust the process when you feel like the honesty might only go one way? When we finally arrived at our destination, we got to work packing up my aunt's belongings. Spending time with my uncle has become something of a routine lately, but there's always this strange, quiet feeling when you're sorting through someone's life after they're gone. I felt it the first time when my dad passed away. You look around at all their things, their books, clothes, personal items, and it hits you. They're gone, but the stuff's still here. Their whole life, reduced to objects. Most of them probably seem trivial to anyone else, but for them, those things meant something. And now we'll never really know why. On the way back home, the mood stayed heavy. We were both deep in thought, about my aunt, the process of letting go, and also about our own conversation earlier. That long day wore us out. But maybe because we were so emotionally drained, we finally had another real talk about our relationship. We even started discussing the possibility of trying marriage counseling again. I promised her I'd seriously consider it, even though I still have doubts. The truth is, I don't know what to make of the affair or the man she was involved with. Should I take her story at face value? And if I do, will that bring me peace, or just reopen wounds? I'm not sure yet. But this conversation, it went deeper than anything we've had in a long time. And I think the fact that we were driving helped. There's something about talking in the car, facing forward, not having to make eye contact, that makes it feel like a confession booth. Saying hard things is just easier. Maybe that's what we need more of, honest, vulnerable conversations without pressure. Maybe that's how we'll move forward, whether we stay together or eventually part ways. Either way, it feels like progress. We pushed through the discomfort. I didn't shut down or withdraw like I usually do. That's something. And to her credit, she didn't get defensive like she has in the past. Maybe I played a role in that too, in the way I've handled things, the way I've reacted. I'm not excusing what she did. It was serious. It absolutely put our marriage at risk. But in comparison, I told her I still believe what Mike's wife did was more severe. She had an affair with someone we both knew. A mutual friend. They spent time with him socially. Her husband had trusted this guy, welcomed him into their home. And yet, she carried on the affair in the very house, even in the same bed they shared. When I think about that, I realize, if my wife had done even a fraction of that, I would have ended things on the spot. I told her honestly, if her relationship with that coworker had ever crossed into the physical, if it had gone beyond just texts and videos, I would have walked away. No hesitation. That part of the conversation was hard. But I respect that she didn't try to dodge it. In fact, I give her credit, she reported the situation to HR herself. Her company has a strict policy against fraternization, and she knew the line had been crossed. I also contacted the other guy's wife. I told her I would take action if she didn't, and that it was important for both of them to handle things responsibly, especially since a divorce was already looming. I'm not sure how much my wife's report influenced what happened next, but the other woman, the one who'd been unfaithful, ended up quitting her job. Honestly, I think she left before things got worse, because if she hadn't, she probably would have been fired. And while she was considered experienced, even a mentor to others, her involvement with a colleague could have led to serious consequences, including his dismissal. From what I heard, his wife did end up filing for divorce. As for my wife and me, we're still here. Still trying. We're working on holding things together. Not just practically, but emotionally and spiritually too. Trying to rebuild what we once had. One slow step at a time.